If you wish to discuss well-known Hollywood rough guys compared to the Lee Marvin as an American TV and movie actor, holds a unique place in that category. Although this actor has a lot more to offer, you might be shocked to learn that when he won an Oscar, he did this. Discover the hidden facts about Americans Lee Marvin and other actors in today's video prior to becoming among the most renowned Hollywood stars. Let us first discuss the origins of Lee Marvin. Lamont was born on February 24, 1924. World War I veteran Waltman Marvin Jr. fashion and Lamont Waltman Marvin young designer Corton, Washington. Marvin Jr. was raised in New York. He started playing the violin but didn't like it, going to school due to his ADHD and dyslexia, which caused him to struggle. In spite of this, he developed into a fine young man and in his adolescence. The aspiring actor's weekends were spent Bob White and shooting deer, wild turkeys, and in the unexplored Everglades at the time, something he liked unrestrainedly. Then in the 1930s, Marvin went to AA residential school for Christian socialists in Peak and Manumet School in New York. Later, at the Skill Military Academy, he was quite a handful when he was a teenager, because he was kicked out of a few alternative schools for vices and misbehavior, smoking and fighting the previous. He was a student at St. Leo College in St. Leo, Florida. Prior to a certain occasion made him alter his behavior and adopt several paths in life. When the World War started, Marvin was among the numerous guys who responded to the call to United States military enlistment, August 2nd Marine Corps 1942. His father, whom he referred to as the head, and who had served in the Marines, was attractive, strongly opposed to it, yet based on appearances, the only thing the young people did was boot camp. For Marvin, discipline has to be pounded on his body, yet there was. He's still a little rowdy, don't you think? Prior to completing infantry school, Marvin had previously served as a quartermaster in Marvin, a Marine. Completed a pair of remarkable feats. He was a scout, the 4th Marine Division's sniper in the Pacific Theater, as well as even took part in the Anat-Tok fights, Cyanan, which was regarded as one of the most horrific incidents in those days. Marvin sustained injuries while serving, while they were attacking Mount Topa during the Sipan battle, alongside the most of his fellows being losses from the aforementioned combat. In June 18th in 1944, machine gun fire shot Marvin, where his sciatic nerve was struck by the bullet, and also took another bullet in his due to this, the opposing sniper's foot. He was taken out and given medical attention, receiving care for about a year. Thankfully, he made a full recovery, and received a medical discharge in addition to for his actions, with the Purple Medal Heart. In addition to his valor, Marvin was also the beneficiary of the Presidential, the Asiatic Pacific Unit Citation, the American Campaign's Campaign Medal, the Ribbon for Combat Action, and the Pretty World War II Victory Medal. Remarkable abilities for a Marine rated first-class private. If Marvin wasn't, he was such a problem that he would still retained his prior position as corporal. However, it appears that you were unable to take, despite serving, bringing out the boy in a guy. It was difficult in the Marines, Marvin says. His stay there is the specific event that taught him how to behave, and I'll explain how. Robert Ward, the interviewer, heard Marvin say, "It was the Marines who instructed me on how to then act as though you're rough." Wasn't as difficult as everyone knows. Lee Marvin was distinguished by his distinctive white hair and served as the best illustration of an ice. This is a chilly, brutal guy after the war, the point at which Marvin's career truly took off. However, before we move forward, be sure to hit that buttons to like and subscribe. When the war was finally finished, Marvin went back home and accepted a position as an assistant to a plumber in New York's Woodstock. But as fate would, as it turned out, this was his pass to the entertainment sector injury. While doing the work that the soon-to-be star was requested to replace an actor, because the latter became unwell during Marvin's rehearsals that same day, discovered the acting bug, growing a love for performing, and earned himself a work at the corporation and makes $7,000 a week. Taking on a lot of acting roles prior to moved to Lower Greenwich Village, New York's Manhattan, and enrolled at thankfully, the American theater wing, the law known as the GI Bill, which offers advantages to those who return. Veterans paid for his acting services. Instruction. At the beginning of his career, Marvin played numerous uncredited parts, and he made his stage debut in 1949. First appearance in the initial production of The Billy Budd, a 1949 play, was released that year. Marvin was also cast in the 1949 perform The 19th Hole of Europe, began to increase from there, and shortly before he knew it, he is booked and occupied with multiple TV roles, in which Lee Marvin debuted in motion pictures. You're in the American war comedy from 1951, the Navy, where he currently served with Charles Bronson and Jack Warden. It just so happened that the two, despite filming, actors make their film debut, occurred in Hollywood. Marvin chose to continue to reside in California the same year. He played a minor part in Fred as well, Teresa, directed by Zimmerman in 1951, and this was the first time his knowledge came in helpful, and he assisted behind the scenes helping the directors and his fellow actors by presenting depictions of troops that are realistic. He even contributed and assisted with the moves, with the weaponry and the costume due to his military experience as well. In a way, Lee Marvin was confined to a particular character, frequently a male with a uniform or in a specific official positions. He worked on numerous projects, but minor, like playing the lead in one of the American Anthology's episodes A Theater Beside the Fire, as well as another Rebound. His other anthology, Diplomatic Career, is one of the earliest works. In the middle of The Sheltering Palms Weir, The Duel at Silver Creek, and Not Married Instead, he took on the character of a guy, once more in uniform, in the Western movie, The Glory of Korea, and the Korean War movie Blade, both of which were released in Marvin, it turns out, was also a wonderful fit at Western. So he had a few of further works in this genre, including The Stranger, Randolph Scott Was Armed, and Gun Fury, all of which were subsequent projects. Led to his breakthrough performance, which was preparing to disclose that the 1950s were the highest point in the actor's career due to At Last. Lee Marvin's fortunate star shone brightly when he gave the most Vince Stone, the antagonist in the 1953 noir. The Large Heart was praised by he starred in that same year's public Marlon Brando's opposite in another crime movie from America called The Wild One. Chino, played by Lee Marvin, was the head of the Beatles are, a motorcycle gang. These two movies earned a lot of praise and indicated Marvin's achievement, which resulted in more prosperous endeavors. His part in The Violent Saturday, a 1955 film, received accolades by reviewers, one of whom made reference to how his performance made of the role's multifarious complexity. Frank was also Marvin's co-star. Sinatra is not a medical stranger. Drama to return in, he had numerous minor appearances in 1955. This decade is similar to A Life in the Balance, Jane's and Pete Kelly's Blues. The Fireside Theater is presented by Wyman, although if a single series in which Marvin won the main part in the series NM Squad, where he assumed the position of Frank Bollinger, a strong Chicago police officer, got well known on television as a star in a variety of capacities and assuming various people, but one in particular role that truly caught the critics' attention with how excellent he was at what he did. Is there a more effective method for an actor to display his abilities, rather than by displaying two distinct individuals in the same film? That's Marvin did precisely that in the 1965 Western Cat Ballou comedy, based on the Marvin's book The Ballad of Cat Ballou, acted in opposition to Jane Fonda, and based on the American film in 2008. The Institute's top 10 ranking was acclaimed as the 10th best Western ever time. It narrates the tale of a lady named Fonda, portrayed Nam Catherine's Cat Ballou, who employs the infamous gunslinger child, Shalene, to safeguard her dad's ranch. She later hires the same man to seek revenge for the death of her father, only to learn that the shooter she employed isn't. This is precisely what she hoped for. Lee Marvin assumes the dual personas of a child and Shalene and the ruthless, noseless people. Tim Straw, assassin of the Wolf City Development Corporation, aimed to frighten off his land, Frankie Ballou. But Straw simply removed the man without regret. At first, the cat looks for assistance from the local government, but quickly learns the sheriff is deeply involved with Wolf City's pockets. Thus she went in search of the assistance of Shalene, a child who is quite humorous and seasoned alcoholic. Cat had her misgivings at the same moment regarding hiring him, but what options does she quickly discovered that there was. The reason behind Kid Shalene's fame, after observing him using the man's recent unmistakable crack shots, were down a few beverages to get rid of his withdrawal in these two jobs that are complete opposites, and it was enjoyable to observe. And one could even assert that they are portrayed by various actors. Where Tim Straw is a dramatic and intimidating person, a child named Shalene is every bit of the latter, is awkward in terms of humorous relief, frequently stumbling, dropping pants, and drunkenly gathered around his ankles, which increases his attractiveness to the viewers with the same scope as it causes people to question whether he is the right someone to remove the infamous strawman he gets his energy from. Cat's there. Love while working to become a better man afterwards. It is discovered that these two, in reality, men are polar brothers. Contrary to Straw, which is ruthless, and Shalene is a vicious person, sensitive somebody who was devastated by the world's faults in spite of the latter's. Only the predicament Cat is able to, believes in him. Therefore he makes an effort. He tried his hardest to improve, with her affection. Shalane was able to confront his inner problems. Consequently, his brother observed how Lee Marvin was able to execute such characters' differing performances. It didn't come with sharing the same screen. As an unexpected revelation that the film not only became a success at the box office, but also received nominations for awards, and viewers were able to discover a different aspect of Lee Marvin's commanding and solemn duties. By playing the part of young Shalane, the actor most likely won, and you would be shocked to learn what Marvin did during his acceptance speech. Devoted to a horse, I believe, but have somewhere. This belongs to a horse. In the valley that caused the people there to chuckle. Following Cat Ballou Lee Marvin, the crowd started a new project in the West, and it's The Professionals, a 1966 movie, which was likewise a huge success after. He was given the main part of Major John as a result. Risman, who turned into one of his most well-known movies starring with other Charles Bronson, is one of the best-built actors. Donald John Cetes and Jim Brown. Lee Marvin's Oscar victory in Southernland gave him a lot more opportunities, and they were already aware at that point that he was an enormous celebrity. Marvin had a considerable authority in his 1967 project Point Blank, in which he played a stern criminal who was determined to exact revenge. This film was directed by John Borman and is hell in the Pacific for the next project, even if this movie wasn't very successful, and the movie praised it. By the 1970s, Lee Marvin discovered himself playing smaller villain parts, and he could investigate other ventures, yet he continues to construct numerous projects in the West. Had Prime Cut Picket, Money by Monty Walsh, The Iceman, and The Emperor of the North among them. Is Cometh, even though he met and collaborated with Lee Marvin and many others, is quite picky about his pals and respects his privacy. Thus there are only a handful of his conversations about his colleagues in the field. Would play if I could because I can't stand myself. Marvin, the same man in all of my performances, once claimed that I don't even enjoy being around myself. I have nothing fresh to say to myself, or do I enjoy other actors' company? If how could I enjoy myself when I don't like myself? Since I am unable to go out in public because, as I used to, I spend the majority of my mingling with the laboring men on the movie set, the stuntmen, the behind this or the prop men and gaffers. I'm kept straight by the scenes men when it regarding his connections. Lee Marvin had one hard marriage and two others. One that eventually became a public disaster on because it was brought to court. But let's discuss his first marriage. Betty Ebling has returned to 1952. Even though their union ended in divorce, they continued to live together for 15 years. Fantastic years. However, they had a short separation for 2 years before to their formal division in. The couple had 4 kids in 1967, including a boy, and 3 daughters, including Christopher Lee, Cynthia Louise, and Lamont Court and Claudia Leslie. Immediately following his breakup, Marvin got into a fight with Ebling. Connection to an American actress, Trilla Michelle, who became his live-in girlfriend between 1965 and 1970. Despite they weren't lawfully wed, Trilla renamed herself Marvin and looked for payment comparable to that of spouses under alimony in California, which turned into the she said in the infamous Palamon lawsuit that during their 6 years of dating, Triola became pregnant with the child of Marvin. And she added that he covered the cost of 2 abortions while she was pregnant with another, resulted in a miscarriage. Also, according to the actress, the abortion produced. The lawsuit claims she is incapable of bearing children, was widely reported. Therefore, everybody was essentially in their business, even if the court mandated that he pay $114,000 for the aim of rehabilitation. They rejected her assertion that she had half of the nearly $4 million that Marvin made over the course of their 6 years together. It was due to a non-marital relationship. Contracts are not the same as marriage. Therefore, her assertion is insufficient. To address that, it took an additional 2 years before the court discovered there wasn't even a non-marital agreement to start, so voiding the prize she obtained, and the matter is being closed as for she had a romantic relationship with Triola. Dick Van Dijak, the actor from 1976 till her lung cancer death. In Back to Lee Marvin in October 2009, the second and last marriage of the actor was to Pamela. His childhood sweetheart is in 1970. The couple were married and stayed together until his premature passing, and as the Hollywood star grew older in 1987, Marvin's popularity declined, and he quickly discovered that he was appearing in less films. The actor's final performance as The Massive Shot appeared as the sergeant in The Epic by Samuel Fuller, 1980. The Big Red One, His other war movie tasks that came after, like Death Dog, Day and The Hunt in Gorky Park, were less commercial achievements. The same is true for first television appearances in 1985. He returned to part in the follow-up as Major John Ryson. The next mission for the Dirty Dozen is still ongoing, where the original movie ended. Even though considering that they are now 18 years older, it's no secret that Lee's health Marvin battled alcoholism, which from his duty throughout the war, throughout the duration of his life, which was the reason of his death. One prominent tale about his issues with sobriety occurred while The Dirty was being filmed. Dozen, in which his main character is Ryson, was expected to operate a truck while character Joseph Law, played by Charles Bronson, just before the start of the shoot. Lee Marvin was nowhere to be found on the set, and the film team was the ones that discovered later on at a bar and took him back on set, all intoxicated, as they still needed to record the scene. The production team made every effort to stay sober, waking him up and forcing him to drink coffee prior to that. A furious Bronson approached to him, threatening to murder Marvin immediately, but fortunately he didn't, and the masterpiece was shown to us. Returning to the Filthy Dozen, subject of his passing, the actor passed away at the 63 years old as a result of a heart attack on August 29th. Marvin experienced a serious intestinal breakage that caused him to enter a respiratory state distress. The medical professionals chose to give him steroids to aid with his only for him to breathe before entering. Months prior to his death, he suffered a heart arrest. Marvin was at the facility for over 2 weeks. December 1986 in a hospital because of illness associated with coidomycosis. Despite his celebrity status, Lee Marvin took greater pride in his work in the Marine Corps, and he received complete Arlington National Military Honors. He was not mentioned in the cemetery. Being in any way an actor, Marvin's Lee Marvin, PFC Marine, was written on the headstone. World War II could be the cause. Lee Marvin provided less significance to his acting career in contrast to serving the nation. Since he recognized Hollywood for what it is, you're a big shot one day, then the next you're in the gutters of fame. 1. Marvin once declared that they placed your name on the sidewalks. You stroll down Hollywood Boulevard. I discover a heap of dog dung on it that explains the entire tale, baby.